Good afternoon, everyone. Last class, we started to discuss about the French Revolution and the idea of the nation. See, we learned that from the very beginning, the French revolutionaries they were introduced various measures and practices that could create a sense of collective identity amongst the entire French people. So especially we learnt about the idea of law patron and les citoyen. So which or the French word. So la patrie means the fatherland and les citoyen means the citizen, and also these the new ideas that is about la patrie and les citoyen. So emphasized the notion of a united community enjoying equal rights under a constitution. So and also a new French tricolor flag was introduced, and even this flag so it was replaced the former the royal standard which they were used in the previous. And also dear students, the estate general, which was the elected assembly of the especially the members of this the estate general, they were elected by the active citizens. So it was renamed as the national assembly. So the estate general, it was renamed as the estate, I mean the national assembly. And also new inns were composed and votes taken, and martyrs they were commemorated, all in the name of the nation. And a centralized administrative system also put in place, and there were formulated uniform laws for all citizens within its territory also. And internal customs and dues were completely abolished, and a uniform system of measures and weights so it was adopted. And the regional dialects were neglected and discouraged, and French it was considered as the language of the nation. See, the revolutionaries further declared that it was the mission and the destiny of the French nation to liberate the peoples of Europe from despotism. In other words, to help other people of Europe to become nations. So these are all ideas. The first time, the concept of liberty, the concept of freedom, the concept of nation, the concept of the nationalism, these are all the new ideas first time emerged in France country, and it was later spread into the different European parts and as well as a different part of the world also. See, when the news of this event in France reached the different cities of Europe, students and other members of the societies, especially educated middle class people, so they were began setting off Jacobin clubs. So already about Jacobin clubs, we learned in the ninth standard history first chapter in the French Revolution. So the Robespierre he was established the Jacobin clubs. So their activities and campaigns prepared the way for the French armies which moved into Holland, Belgium and Switzerland and much of the Italy in the 1790s. See, with the outbreak of the Revolutionary Wars, the French armies began to carry the idea of nationalism abroad. So, with the French army, so what happened now afterwards? So, especially the news of these events in France reached the different cities and towns and even the different places of the European countries. Especially students and other members of the educated middle classes began setting up the Jacobin clubs. Their activities and campaigns prepared the way for the French armies which moved into Holland, even Belgium, Switzerland, and even much of Italy also in 1790s. So now during this time, so the army, so outbreak of the Revolutionary War also, and the French armies they were began to carry the idea of nationalism abroad also. This is all taken place so during 1790s. Understood now? So then afterwards what happened? See, within the wide swath of territory that came under his control, especially under the control of Napoleon. So Napoleon he was set about introducing many of the reforms that he had already introduced in France. So Napoleon Bonaparte, so he was started the new policies and then he was introduced the new measures and new reforms in the country, and whatever he was introduced in the France country and it's spread all over the European countries, especially which are under the control of the France. So during this time, the France it's conquered so many other countries also. I mean the other regions also. So where and all the entire the territories which were under the control of the France and those areas and all those countries. So the Napoleon introduced the same what he was started the reforms and then policies. So it was applied in the entire different areas also. See, through a return to monarchy. Now, what happened once again? So, after the decline of the Louis dynasty, I mean Louis kingdoms. So, again, once again, so the France people they were returned to monarchy. Napoleon had no doubt, so he was a destroyed democracy in a France country because he was becoming one of that. So again, through Napoleon, again, once again, they are returned to the monarchical type of the government. But the thing is that in an administrative field, he had incorporated revolutionary principles in order to make the whole system more rational and efficient. Even though, so being a head of the France, so he was brought a lot of changes in the administrative field. So he was incorporated revolutionary principles in his administratives and also in order to make the whole system more rational and efficient. So, which is whatever he brought the changes in his administration in the France and the entire the different territories so which are under the control of the France. So those set of law or policies or whatever he brought or introduced the different measures, policies and all. So well known as the Civil Code of 1804. The Civil Code of 1804 and this is also known as Napoleonic Code. This is also Napoleonic called also Napoleonic Code. See, the Napoleonic Code or the Civil Code of 1804 did away with all privileges based on birth, established equality before the law and secured the right to property also. Secured the right to property. So this is what the main. See, according to this civil code of 1804, so he did away with all the privileges which are enjoyed by the different class people based on their birth. So it was completely abolished and also established equality before the law and secured the right to property. Secured the right to property. What happened now? So first it was so whatever the privileges they were enjoyed the different class people in a France country based on birth, it was completely abolished and also according to Napoleonic code, so whoever it may be in the society, so all are equal before the law and there is no inequality in the society, and also he was secured the right to property also. And this code was exported to the regions under the French control. So even in the Dutch Republic also, and even in Switzerland also, Italy also, Germany also. So Napoleon simplified administrative divisions. How he was simplified the administrative divisions? So by abolishing the feudal system, and he was freed peasants from serfdom and manorial dues. This is one of the important reforms which was brought by the Napoleon through his civil code of 1804. So what happened now? So he was tried and simplified the administrative system, and also abolished he was abolished the feudal systems, and even he was freed the peasants from the serfdoms, and also whatever they were paid the manorial dues, so the peasants and the common people they were become free from all these things. So in the towns too, guide restrictions were removed. In the towns also they are practicing the guild restrictions. That is not a sorry guide, guild restrictions. So that is also completely removed, and transport and communication systems were improved. Peasants, artisans, workers, and new business class people, so and they were all the different the categories people, they were all enjoyed a newfound freedom. So they were all become a very free, and they were all enjoyed because of this reform and because of his administration, and whatever he was brought the changes in his administration. So especially, so these are all, so the main thing that was simplified the administrative divisions also, abolished the feudal systems, and then freed from the peasants from the serfdom also and manorial dues, and it was removed the guild restrictions also, and it was improved the transport and communication system, and the different class people those who are settled in a France country, so they were all actually especially peasants, artisans, workers, and new business class people, they were all enjoyed this new found freedom. They were almost all they are very happy, they were all very happy, and then they were enjoyed this new found freedom. See, the businessman and small scale producers of goods in a particular began to realize that uniform laws and standardized weights and measures also, and a common national currency would facilitate the movement and exchange of goods and capital from one region to another. These were all it was. The new currency was introduced, and the standards, the weights and measures also introduced. So, like this, so and so, the changes he was brought in administration, and whatever he brought the social and administrative reforms. So, it is well known as the Civil Code of 1804, and even it is called also the Napoleonic Code. So by this we can understand that so it was one of the efficient and eminent administrator. But the thing is that the France it was returned to the monarchy, and there was no doubt. So the Napoleon Bonaparte so he was destroyed the democracy in a France country. But even though he was brought a lot of changes in his administration. See, however, in the areas conquered, the reactions of the local population to French rule were mixed. The reactions of the local population about the French rule, so it was completely the rule were French rule were mixed. See, initially in many places, for example, even in Holland also, and even in Switzerland also, and as well as in certain cities like Brussels, Mainz, Milan, and Warsaw. So the French armies were welcomed as a harbingers of liberty. So this is what we should think about that. See, all these are the different countries people, the different regions people of Europe, especially Holland, Switzerland, and even some of the certain cities like the Brussels, Mainz, Milan, Warsaw. See here, all the different people. So those who are there in that respective regions or the countries or the towns and cities. So they were all welcomed the French armies. How they were welcomed now? As harbingers of liberty. As harbingers of liberty. See, but the initial enthusiasm soon turned to hostility. Soon turned to hostility. Why? So, as it became clear that the new administrative arrangements did not go hand in hand with the political freedom, does not go in hand with the political freedom. See, the increased taxation, censorship, and forced conscriptions into the French armies required to conquer the rest of Europe. See, all seem to overview the advantages of the administrative changes. So, some of these, because of his war, and because of his whatever some of the other things, so the completely whatever the all seem to all to wave out way of the advantages of the administrative changes, so it was completely, why? Because the thing is that, so even the all different the countries people, they were welcomed the French armies. How they were welcomed now? As harbingers of the liberty. But initially, the enthusiasm soon turned into hostility. They were become disappointed. Why they were become disappointed? Because the new administrative arrangement did not go hand in hand with political freedom. So there was no political freedom, and they were increased the taxation, and even they were stopped censorship also, and forced conscription into the French armies required to conquer the rest of Europe. So all seem to overview the advantages of the administrative changes. So anyhow dear students, so it is very much important. So please concentrate on this about the Napoleonic Code or the Civil Code of 1804. The next class, we are going to learn about the making of nationalism in Europe. The making of nationalism in Europe. How the idea of nationalism and the concept of the nation and the ideas which were specially introduced and started in the France country. So it was spread into the different European countries and all. So that we are going to learn in this topic. That is about the making of nationalism in Europe. See, what we know today as Germany or Italy and Switzerland. So before it was divided into different kingdoms, and even the duchies and canons whose rulers had their autonomous territories. Okay, so the present Germany, before it was not like that. Why? Because no, because they were divided into different kingdoms. They were divided into different kingdoms. So that's what. So the duchies and even the cantons, so whose rulers had their autonomous territories, and even the Eastern and Central Europe, they were under the autocratic monarchies, within the territories of which lived diverse people also, and they did not see themselves as sharing a collective identity or a common culture. See, often they even spoke different languages also and belonged to different ethnic group also. The Habsburg Empire that ruled over Austria-Hungary, for example, was a patchwork of many different regions and peoples. It includes the Alpine regions, the Tyrol, Austria, and Sudetenland, and as well as Bohemia. See, where the aristocracy was predominantly German speaking, it also including the Italian speaking provinces also, for example, Lombardy and Venetia. So in Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar, while the other half spoke the variety of dialects. That means the regional language. In Galicia, the aristocracy spoke Polish language, and beside these three dominant groups, there also lived within the boundaries of the empire a mass of subject peasant people. Bohemians and Slovaks to the north, and Slovenes in Carniola, and Croats to the south, and Romans to the east in Transylvania. Such differences did not easily promote a sense of political unity. A sense of political unity. The only tie binding these diverse groups together was a common alliance to the emperor. So, in this case, how did nationalism and the idea of nation state emerge? That we are going to discuss in the next class. Thank you. Have a nice day.